if I didn't tell this story, if I didn't tell my story, if I didn't tell my struggle and my thing, that somebody out there was going to fail in their own life. And I felt like I needed to write the book because somebody else out there was going to read it and they were going to change the world.
Welcome to a special edition of The Buzz here at BuzzWorthy Radio. I'm your host, Novell J. Lee, and I had the pleasure of sitting down and speaking with one of my good friends, Christopher David, who is the co-host of the award-winning podcast, Advice Unfiltered, as we talked about our own journeys through mental health struggles and how we overcame those into becoming the person, or persons, I should say, that we are today. This episode is taking part in Podcasthon, where podcasters from around the globe come together to raise awareness for charitable causes. And this episode in particular is raising awareness for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is the nation's largest grassroots organization for people affected by mental illness. I'm very proud, and I was very happy to participate in this, and I was very fortunate to have Christopher join me in this insightful conversation. Let's take a look. What shocked me was that I didn't realize this was only roughly 10 years ago, almost, that a lot of this happened. I thought this was way back in the day when you were much younger than that. So to find out that it was just within a 10-year span of where you are right now, that really was shocking to me. But you definitely are a person who really, really struggled, but you turned that struggle. And that was the one thing that from your show on Tuesday resonated with me the most. I love that you had to say that you necessarily don't want to relive in the past, but when you do talk about this, you talk about the positives of what came from that. And that's really what I love about your stories, because that's not your focus. Your focus is not what happened before. And my first question for you is that when it came to the book, because I know you had the book, and I think the other comment that you had about it was like, once you had the book, it was done. You don't really kind of focus on the book anymore. You have it done. It's out there. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, do you feel like if you hadn't have written that book, this still would have manifested in your mind and it still would have been a part of you that you would not have gotten past?
Yeah, if I wouldn't have got past, you asked if I wouldn't have got past it if I wouldn't have written the book.
Yeah.
No, the book wasn't a stepping stone for me. It wasn't. It wasn't me. It wasn't. I know it sounds crazy, trying to get all emotional about it, but the reason I titled the book is it was never just about me, because I felt like this whole time that it wasn't about me. That's why I really don't promote it. I really don't push it out there. Like, you hear me talk about what people talk about it with me. The reason being is because I felt like if I didn't tell this story, if I didn't tell my story, if I didn't tell my struggle and my thing, that somebody out there was going to fail in their own life. And I felt like I needed to write the book because somebody else out there was going to read it and they were going to change the world. Like they were going to have keynotes and key tools now that they didn't have before, and they're going to go out there and be the next Tony Robbins and the next, the Mel Robbins. And I thought somebody out there, a younger person or a male or female, would read this book and be like, fuck, man, I'm not alone in this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not alone in this. Like, there's people out there, because again, like, as you said, people make assumptions about me, right off the bat, right? They see me and they think, oh, this guy's probably had a fucking easy life. He's got whatever the fuck he wanted. You know what I mean? And it's not the case.
Yeah.
From it, right? Yeah. So I think writing the book was just, it was hard for me to write because nobody really wants to hear, nobody really wants to write down all their bad choices, right?
That's fair,
right? Nobody wants to be like, oh man. And it was funny too, because when I had somebody writing it with me, right? Keeping notes and all this stuff. And I remember she came back to me after the book was written and she goes, Chris, this book doesn't really make you sound good. And she goes, it really doesn't make you, it doesn't really, highlight, you as a person. And I said to her, and I think the word you were looking for when you were describing it as I needed to be raw. I need to be real. I'm not trying to put myself out there to be like some perfect guy who just all of a sudden woke up one day and decided to make the right choices, and all of a sudden his life was all fucking roses and sunshine. And that's not real. That's not the case at all. And so I needed to understand why I made the choices I made, right? Because that's really what it's about, right? It's accountability. That's what it's about. So to understand the choices I made to get me to that point where I turned to drugs, where I turned to alcohol, where I thought about suicide, where I lost everything, was living out of my car. They had to understand where I came from. You know, what helped me create those choices, right? What made me feel like I wasn't good enough to make a better choice, right? And I think that's why I went back so far back into my childhood and how I was raised, because a lot of us are raised like that, especially guys our age, you know, or girls our age are raised like that, where, you know, the dad didn't talk about the emotions, right? They didn't talk about, you know, none of our parents or grandparents ever talked about mental health ever. It wasn't a thing. So
it was like a curse word for them.
It was. Well, you know, I was talking to a lady from Ukraine. I'm sorry, no, not Ukraine, Poland. I was talking to her, and we were talking about mental health, you know, and we were talking about therapy and all this stuff. And she said it herself. She goes, you know, my country, because people look at therapy as people who are you know, schizos or like mentally or on they're handicapped. Something's wrong with them. You know? That's where the stigma comes into play, right? And I really thought that if I wrote this book, that it would really, really help somebody. I guess it was like 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I got sick with COVID, and really bad, and I thought I was gonna die. I was sick for 3 weeks, bro. And I actually, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional about this, but I actually cried and I prayed to God. I said, "Dad, I can't do it anymore. I said, I can't do this anymore, man." I said, you know, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. My ex-wife again took my son from me at the time. Again, and I knew she wasn't gonna let me see him, and I was at the fight for him again, and I was like, man, I'm too tired. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. And I actually apologized because again, I thought me writing the book was bigger than me, right? Like that was a thought and a feeling that was put into me by a higher power. Like whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, you know, we are created in an image. We you know, like, I'm a firm believer that we, you know, if you believe in the universe, believe in God, either way, those things exploded into a miracle of things of happening, right? So and if we are creatures of the universe and we are creatures of God or whatever, then why wouldn't the ability to pass down that ability to create our own life, and no different than him creating the universe or the universe creating itself in the Big Bang, why wouldn't we be able to have that same ability, right? So I actually cried. I prayed to God and I said, listen, I said I can't do it anymore. So I'm tired. You know, and no lie, bro. I fell asleep. It was 11 o'clock. I fell asleep. I woke up at 3:30, coughing my ass off, like coughing, and I felt like I coughed something out of me. Like it was, I couldn't breathe, and I fell back asleep. Immediately fell back asleep, bro. Right, and I wake up that morning, and it was like you said, I was bedridden for 3 weeks, dude. 3 weeks bedridden, and I woke up that morning, and I felt like I needed to go somewhere there was a pier. And I was still living in Pennsylvania at the time. And I needed to go somewhere there was water and there was a pier. So I literally got up, dude. I took a shower and I jumped in my car and I drove 3 hours to North Jersey. No game plan, no idea where I'm going, no idea what I'm doing. I get there probably about 4 o'clock, right? So I got about 2.5 hours till the sun's going down, right? It's like the end of August. And I get there and I pull up on the beach. It's like a fair. I forget what beach it was at. And I could drive you there, but I can't remember the name of it. It's wherever that gym is with the big Hulk freaking standing in front of it. But anyway, so they I pull up and I asked the guy, because he had to pay to park. I asked the guy, like, you know, is there a pier by here? He goes, actually, yeah, if you drive down the beach a little bit, here's a pier right down there. You go fishing off the pier. I'm like, awesome, bro. So I go driving down there and I get out and as I'm walking on the pier, there's this lady on this golf cart. Yeah. All the way down the end of the pier. And she comes up, she's like, oh, it's $5 for bait and the fish off the pier. I go, oh, I was like, you know, I forgot my wallet in the car. I was like, if you drive me back, I'll get it. So as I get in the thing with her, her granddaughter calls her, right? And her granddaughter sent her, and she's like, and I hear her having this amazing interaction with her daughter, right? This sitting there talking about, you know, she bought her granddaughter a fishing rod, and she's saying, Mimi, I can't wait to see you. And they're having this amazing moment. So they get off the phone. I said, oh, that was a beautiful thing to see. You know what I mean? I said, I miss my son. I said, you know, right now, I said, my ex-wife took my son from me again, and I'm not going to see him again for a while. And I know that. And being a parent is not only the best thing that's ever happened to me, but it's also the hardest fight I've ever had to fight, because with both my kids, I had to fight to be a father, you know? And all I ever wanted to be was a dad. I didn't want to fight anybody. I just wanted to be a dad. And she starts crying. And I was like, what's wrong? She goes, that's the first time I talked to my granddaughter in 6 months. She goes, her mom took her from my son, and that was the first time my son's had her in 6 months. And they got court coming up on Friday. And I'm scared to death that he's not going to be able to get custody. And so I shared my experience with her, right? I talked to her about my experience, and I talked about and I gave her advice about what her son needs to do to secure his fatherhood, right? Like he has to document things, he has to write things down. This is what he has to do. And trust me, and if he needs somebody to talk to, you know, if he needs somebody to help him, let me know. And she starts crying and she hugs me. And she goes, you have no idea how much I needed that right now. It always gets me. Because I sit there and I go, and she goes, and I go look at her and I go, wow. I was like, you're the reason I'm here. Like, you're the reason I had to come here today. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I was dying. I was dying,
literally
bro.
dying.
Literally dying. And I prayed to God, and I said to him, I said, forgive me for not finishing the book. I said, forgive me for not getting it done. Because I know that was my mission, right? And so that should happen, bro. And I'm still in contact with that lady today. Her son has her kid, but it goes back to that whole thing about a bigger purpose, right? A bigger meaning. And that was what put the fire back in my ass again. That was God. That was the universe saying, hey, you're not done yet.
You're not done yet.
You're not done yet. You still got shit to do. You're not done yet. Yeah, you're sick. Yeah, you're tired. But guess what? You're not done yet. You got shit to do. So for me, again, the book wasn't a catalyst to end something for me. It was a catalyst to begin something for somebody else.
Do you feel like that was the push to start Advice Unfiltered, or was there something else to where the podcast came into fruition?
Well, so my whole life, man, I've been told about my voice. It's so funny because people think I fake it. I've had this voice since I was 13, since I hit puberty.
Guys, so he's not AI right now. This is not AI.
Not AI. All real, right?
All real.
And so my whole life I used to get told that I should do something with my voice. And I actually went to Kennedy School of Broadcasting and graduated top of my class, man. It was so funny because even when I went to school there, they sort of I was always the oldest person in class. I was at Cherry Hill. But yeah, so they when I went to school there, even the teachers were treating me differently, like everybody else, and I pulled his name was Tim. I pulled him aside one day. I was like, Tim, listen, I know you're treating me differently, bro. I was like, is there a reason for that? Like, it's because I'm old? He goes, no, man. He goes, we know who you are, and he winks at me. I'm like, what do you mean know who I am? Who am I? he goes, man, we know you're a secret shopper from corporate checking on us. I was like, Tim, I'm going to tell you right now. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know anybody in corporate. I paid the 10 grand. I'm here. It's like, I need you to teach me, bro.
That's amazing.
So funny, bro. So then I graduated, top of my class, and I did it all for a girl. This girl thought her parents thought I wasn't good enough to date, and I wanted to show her that her parents said I was good enough to be with, And I went home right after I graduated, and she packed her stuff up and left.
Oh. Whoa! Wait a minute.
Yeah, but it was funny because I was leaving the school. Actually, let me back up. I got that wrong. Let me back that up. So I leave the school on my way home. I hear on the radio that they're having the Philly Chili Bowl, right?
Okay.
Kevin Spraga from Top Chef's going to be there. The Bono brothers, who own the Italian market for 120 years, are going to be there. Culinary school is going to be there. And I think they had one other judge there, right? And I'm like, well, what a great opportunity, bro. I was like, why don't we go and interview all these people? So I called them on the phone, and they said, yeah. So I ended up going, and I ended up interviewing all these famous people, right? This guy, Dan, and this guy, what the hell was his name? He was Josh. Freaking, all went. Three of us all went. I'm like, here we are, bro. We just graduated class, and we're already interviewing top celebs, right? Yeah. And so I do the whole thing, and then I go home, and then she packs her stuff up and leaves. I was like, fuck. And so then I didn't do anything with it. I didn't do nothing with it, bro. I went back to bartending. I went back to training. And I also went back to doing drugs and drinking, right? Because I was like, fuck, man, what was the point? I had to spend all this time trying to prove I was worth being loved. And they left me anyway, right? Because my biggest thing, and I think you probably got that from my book, is abandonment issues. Right? That was my not feeling like I was worthy enough. And everybody I dated or I set myself up with were all people that I need to prove that I was worthy of love, right? And then when they left and it didn't work out, it's because I self-sabotaged, right? Yeah. So I started that, and then God, probably about, I guess it was 5 years ago, I started a podcast with two of my friends, man, Bobby Newton and German Herrera. German Spanish and Bobby's black. But I grew up with both those guys, both of my family. But I thought about it. I was like, we have a great chemistry. And if I have a Spanish guy and a black guy, the only thing I'm missing is a gay person. And then I can talk about whatever the hell I want. You know what I mean? Nobody's coming at me, bro. You know what I mean? Because, you're my age, right? So when we grew up, Like we would bust on each other. Like it's funny because my boy Bobby, and you have to meet Bobby one day. He looks like Michael Joel White. Great guy. Taught me all my functional fighting and gave me some of the best advice I've ever had in my life about how to overcome things. Like one of the best things he ever told me, we were sparring for about 2 hours. And he's a big dude. He's like 6'2" and he's like 230 pounds. And he doesn't have like 2 arms and 2 legs. He's got like 4 legs. Like his arms are long as shit. So we would spar all the time. We were sparring for like 2 hours, and he kicked me in the chest, got me good, dude, knocked the wind out of me, launched me, bro, right? And he comes up and sweat dripping down his face, and sweat dripping down my face. And he looks at me, I was like, dude, I'm done. And he looks at my face, and he goes, man, you're still breathing, right? I go, yeah. He goes, and you can still fight. Shut the fuck up, get up, you know? And I was 19 when he told me that, bro. And it's been stuck in my head ever since. Anytime anything happens to me, anything that if I'm still breathing, I can still fight. But my whole point about any of this is that I've never been one to associate people with a color or nationality. Right. Back to the book thing. Yeah, it wasn't a closing of a chapter for me. And it wasn't a stepping stone for me. It was something I had to get done because something bigger told me to get it done. And that's why even now, like I talk about it. You know what I mean? When people ask me about it, but I feel like it's one of those things that's out there in the universe that it'll find that right person that needs it, right? And I would have never thought, dude. I think I sold 500,000 copies. I don't know the exact. I don't even know the exact numbers of but I know it was number 1 and number 2 on Amazon twice, for men's mental health, which I'm very, very proud of. But it was never the accolades for me, man. It was just the idea that I had to get it done because there was somebody out there that needed to read it and that needed to get better from it. Yeah,
I love that you look at it as that it's not really a focal point for you in your life, but it's there for, as you just said, if anybody needed to read it, if it needed to speak to somebody. And I think, you know, I read it after I met you, but for me, I even said when I first met you guys, when I did, the first thing I said was, I don't know why that I really resonated with these guys so much. There was like a reason why we clicked as soon as we did. Yeah. And then as soon as I got to know you and then learn a bit more about you and then listen to the book on Audible, I immediately just said it clicked, and I went, that makes total sense now as to why I do feel the way that I do about these guys and now why I consider them not just my friends, but they're now like my family at this point. And
I love you, bro.
and it was just because I know I went through it, and again, it's not something I shy away from, but it's also, and it stemmed from work when I had my breakdown, and it got to a point where it was just a lot of things were too much, and I didn't really have the support that I needed from my boss at the time of that job. I got laid off from this job 4 years ago. So for me, when it happened, for the breakdown aspect of it, the thing that stuck with me was my boss said that when I had the breakdown, he pretty much told me that you need to find another place to work if you're there was no support there whatsoever, and I was very fortunate. I had my family and my friends who did support me when it happened, but hearing from my boss nowhere near anything close to that, it was very jarring for me, and it opened up a lot of my thoughts about it. It really opened up a lot of demons in me. I always talk about having imposter syndrome. I always talk about, I didn't have abandonment issues, but I also know what you're saying about being loved and not being loved aspect. A lot of that started creeping in a little bit, and I hate sitting alone with my thoughts sometimes, because then I always overabundantly think, oh my God, they don't really like me. They don't really care about me. They don't XYZ. It's so weird what goes on in this mind of mine at times.
Well, that's the thing, right? That's the thing, Buzz, is that it's not just you that has those thoughts, right?
No,
it's not. Those thoughts, those imposter syndromes, moments you're alone, and those voices in your head are ringing so loud. It's one of the lessons I learned, right? It was because there's so much distraction, there's so much noise. You know what I mean? It's like, if I want to feel better, I'm going to buy something. If I want to feel better, I'm going to hang out with somebody. If I want to feel better, I'm going to do drugs. I'm going to drink. I'm going to have sex. I'm going to do all these physical short-term fixes to distract myself from being in my own head. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny because we all do it, man. We all try to run away from ourselves. Because sitting with ourselves is the hardest thing. I think it's one of the hardest lessons we have to learn, right? Is that silence is, and I say, you hear me say this on my show all the time, it's a gift. It's a gift, man, because the one thing that you have constantly that's with you every day is you. And if you don't learn to be comfortable with you, then everything else around you is going to be chaos. You know, it's going to be one of those things. And I think going back to your question about the podcast, I started, like I said, I started with German and Bobby. We call it part of the tribe. Is what we called it, part of the tribe. And we did a lot of episodes, and they were great. They were fun. They were really good. If you get a chance to check it out, they are on YouTube, part of the tribe. Great group of guys. Still love them to death. But because I moved, I was here, and when I came here, I really focused on the acting and modeling, and it was taking off for me pretty good. And then that writer's strike hit, and everything stopped, bro. And I was like, fuck. And so then it became Lifetime. Came to me and offered me a job, and I went there to go work, and I knew what it entitled to be a trainer. Like everybody, listen, everybody's thinking about being a trainer. You see those ads on the thing that says, "Hey, you want to work out and get in shape, become a trainer." No, the problem is now your job is where where your peace of mind goes, right? Most people go to the gym to get that peace of mind. Well, now you work at that place, and now
you
your
work
job
there,
is
so you can't.
Yeah, you can't work out. You know what I mean? And it takes a lot. Like if you want to be successful in that business, you have to work outside your hours. You have to, you know what I mean? So it takes a lot. And I knew it would take a lot to do that, right? And then my social media kind of peaked like a year ago. It was a year ago, February. I had 3,492 followers on Instagram. That's all I had. And I had 232,000 on Facebook, and I had 248,000 on TikTok. And it was frozen. It wasn't growing. It wasn't changing. And I was working my ass off. I was just working. I was putting in about 60 hours a week, and which was fine at the time because I didn't have my son. But I'm also 49 years old, and I really don't want to work 60 hours, and I don't want to work 10-hour days, and I don't want to do that crap. You know what I mean? And I made a promise to myself 10 years ago that I was going to use what God gave me. My whole life, dude, from my parents to whoever I dated, based my decisions on what made them feel comfortable, right? I didn't do what I wanted to do, right? Like
you didn't put yourself first.
Yeah, I got a contract from Wilhelmina and Ford, one of the top two model agencies in New York when I was 22. My mom told me looks fade and threw them in the garbage. Girls I dated hated the fact because I'm a social butterfly, bro. I hype people up. I'm really what I'm really good at is when I'm in interaction with somebody, I make them feel like they're the only person in the fucking world and they are the most important person in the world. And I'm really good at doing that because I'm generally I care. You know what I mean? Like I genuinely feel that way, right? It's not a mask. It's not. I'm excited to be alive and I'm excited to meet people, right? And
I want to stop you there for something real quick because you saying that and watching your social media videos every day, and you say that to people all the time, and people like to come in there and troll and say that that's not really your persona, it's fake, and that's not really your personality. And I'm just sitting here going, it's actually you're 100% wrong. And this is literally who he is as a person. He is actually someone who, and I love that about you. And that's something that you can pick up on is that when you are talking to somebody, you make sure that is in your vision, the only person in the room. You're making them feel like they're the only person in the room. You're making them feel important. And the fact that there are people that don't grasp that concept, it just kind of makes me feel like, well, I really don't want you as a person in my life because I'm dead ass honest. It took me a long time to feel that way about people because one thing I will say when I talked about the job too and how that mental issue happened, it really made me see people in a different light. It made me stronger as a person. It also made me realize what I gave up because of that job, because in SSU, you were working a lot. You didn't want to work so much because there were things you wanted to do outside of work that you really did not want to put all of this time into your job. And that's what the job did for me. And the first thing it said for me in my head was I had to give up the podcast at that time. I literally stopped doing it for 2.5 years because of that job. I didn't put out any material. I didn't put out anything. And people were asking me, where's new episodes? Like, what's been going on? Like, what are you doing? And it was because of that job. I literally made that job my focal point. And I hated having that.
I'm going to stop you there. I want to ask you. So when you made that choice, right? Okay. Was it a comfort zone for you? Or was it like it was comfort and easy, right? Because you put yourself like, so for me, right? It was easy for me to take the job a lifetime. I knew I'd kill it, right?
Yeah.
I knew I'd be really good at it. And it was something that everybody, including my oldest son and the girl, would take the time, Chris, you need to take this job. It's a 6-figure job. You got health benefits, the whole nine, right? It's safe, right? And so my question to you is, do you think you took that job because it was safe for you also?
I mean, it was part of it, but at the time, it was an advancement in my career at the time in pharmacy when I was doing it. So I did take it, but I didn't at the time realize how much they were going to put on my plate because of it. Because, they had promoted it was work-life balance, this and then the other thing. That wasn't the case. There was no work-life balance.
Is that funny how that works? Is that funny how that works? I've learned that the corporation people, they go, hey, we're a family here. We do all this stuff. The moment they say that, they're full of fucking shit.
It was an absolute lie. It was an absolute lie. Was so pissed and I was so pissed that I had to give that up, because when I came back to it, which was the year that the strikes happened, the writer strikes and the actor strike happened with 2023, and getting back into it, the first thing I said to people when at the current job I'm doing as well, which is in pharmaceutical sales at this point, if this messes up my podcast gig, I'm not taking the job. I flat out told every person who I've ever interviewed after that point, I said, if this interrupts this, I'm not taking the job. I'm sorry, not sorry. I'm not going to do it. This is something that means something to me. This is something that I built. I didn't spend almost 20 years to make this be something, and then all of a sudden I have to go, I'm not doing this anymore. No, we're not doing that. I'm coming here. I want to do this job with you. I like working for you. I like working with you. But don't take this away from me, because if you do, I'm not going to be here or at all. So, and ever since I
respect that, dude. I respect that.
And they respected that from me too, because they're very supportive of this at my job now. And they know there was at one point I was supposed to do a red carpet for Kate Hudson's new show on Netflix for Running Point, and I didn't go because I had to do a business dinner. In North Jersey, actually. It was in North Jersey. I was supposed to go to New York to do that event, and then my boss couldn't go to the dinner. He asked me to go in his place, even though I had this already set up a month ago. But I was also at the other job when I set that up. So when I came into the new position and that happened, I still didn't have time yet to burn, so I couldn't take off. And I knew how that works in the game. You got to make your boss look good. So I was like, you know what? I'll do this. So, but you owe me. So I went and I told them, I had something going on, but I didn't tell them what. I said I had something going on. And then I said, but I will be there in place of Alex, and then from there. And then I get there, they find out what the event was that I canceled, and they said, why didn't you say no? You still have time to get there? I was like, well, by this point, the red carpet's over. I can't get I'm not going to get my time now, but I might as well just get a meal out of it. So, right. I'm compensating now with food. So, and then that was also the weekend that the Eagles parade was going on. They won the Super Bowl. And I didn't go to the parade. And they said, because I was also at a meeting as well up there, and they said, you mean you gave up Kate Hudson and the parade for us? And I said, yeah. They said, we're going to have to teach you how to say no. I said, don't worry, I can say no. I just did this as a favor. Right. But they had been very, very on board, and I really do appreciate that with this job. And they know what I do. They know I get everything done. They know, and they have my back with this, and it's been awesome. It's been an absolute blessing, because I never really had that prior to this job. Yeah, well, that's a lie. Yes, I had, but not to the extent of this, where I'm working kind of in a bigger position where you can have your own hours, in essence, but not really your own hours. But
I think that goes back into tying in what we were talking about, right? Like, you made a choice, right? You made a choice before this job that this is more important to you. This is my dream. This is what I'm going to do, right? And I think that's what this whole thing is about, right? Is making that choice to commit to your dream. Yeah. And to go back into what I was saying about how me and Tony got together is I knew when I took this job at Lifetime that if I wanted to act and I wanted to model and I wanted to pursue what I wanted to do, then the only way I was going to be possible for me is if I became the top trainer at my gym and I showed them that I'm valued, right? That you need me, right? Like I bring something to the table that nobody else fucking brings. So that way when the occasion arises, that everything starts taking off for me, and I go, yo, man, I got to take off. They're cool about it, and they are. And I did that, right? But I made a choice the back of my mind, I kept thinking, man, people love my voice, right? And I really have something to say. Like I have something to say. I'm not just out here just being a pretty face and a deep
You're not
voice.
here bullshit. It's pretty much the bottom line.
I'm not bullshitting, right? Like this is real, right? So I met Tony at the gym, and the only reason I met Tony at the gym is like, so I do old school and somewhat, I'm gonna say unorthodox workouts, but functional workouts, right? Where a lot of these young trainers, they're doing whatever's on Instagram and they're doing whatever.
Yeah, they're doing whatever the trend is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw Tony stealing my workouts. He's doing copying my workouts, like thinking I do with my clients. So I went up to and Tony's a good looking guy, right? So the first time I met Tony, I walked up to him. I said, "Listen, man, just so you know, there's a quota here at the gym for silver foxes." I was like, nobody else is allowed to come here.
No more allowed.
Yeah, we're it. We're the silver foxes. Everybody else comes out. You got to help me throw them out. And by the way, you owe me $160, man. He goes, for what? I'm like, because I see you stealing my workouts. So that's how we met, right? Good. And then one day, Tony was on the treadmill, and I made a choice. I was dating this girl for 4 years. She was amazing. She still is amazing. We're still really good friends. But she couldn't deal with what I was doing, right? She couldn't deal with the explosion of my thing. And I kept thinking to myself, God gave me this voice. He gave me these looks for a reason. I want to capitalize on all this so that I can create a more and better financial life for my kids, right? Like my whole objective of doing any of this, man, is I want to create a legacy for my children that they can be proud of. And I want to create financial wealth for them so that they have generational wealth. That's something that they can build off of, right? That's why I'm doing the fitness app. That's why I'm doing the cooking show and the cookbook. That's why I do the podcast. These are all things that once, I'm gone, they'll be able to keep revenue from. They'll still make money from that, and they'll still have that, and they can do whatever the hell they want with it, right? So I said to Tony was talking, me and him were talking, and he started telling me how he was going to do a podcast with his wife. He's got all this equipment and all this stuff, and I was like, and I looked at him, and it hit, right? Because I talked to some other people about doing the podcast with them, right? And I talked to this guy that was a lawyer, and I was talking about doing the podcast with him, and he wanted to do like this man show type thing with girls and trampolines. And I kept thinking, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a gimmick, right?
But you don't want to have a sexualized show. You don't want to do.
No, dude, I want to do something that's actually going to make a difference, right? It's going to be sustainable, right? And I want it to be real. Here's the thing about me. I am too stupid to pretend to be anybody else, right? I can't keep a facade. I can't do any of that crap, right? And I'm not smart enough to do that. So I just got to be me, right?
At least you own it.
Yeah, dude, I own that shit, right? So Tony was telling me all this, and I looked at him. I said, dude, listen, I know you don't know me worth a hole in the wall, bro, right? Like we've only ever called a couple times at the gym. We've never hung outside. At that moment, we never hung outside the gym together, ever. I said, listen, I got this really great idea for a podcast. And I know if I find the right person, if the person does it with me, it's going to fucking take off. And it's going to evolve, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be something that's going to be really, really fucking big. And I just need somebody to do it with me. I just need somebody to believe in it like I do and do it with me. So then, and I told him what I thought. I thought, in my mind, I was like, the best way to get people to watch anything is if you make it about them. If you make it about them, you make it about the followers. And so I made a choice a year ago that we were going to do this show, and me and Tony came up with the name Advice Unfiltered, and in my mind, and this is what I was thinking about, and this is I used to do this as part of the tribe too, is that we go live on everything. We go live on every single platform at once, and we make it as raw and honest as possible, right? And in my mind, I thought this was a great idea because nobody else has the balls to do that, right? Nobody else has the balls to go live. Because they're all afraid they're going to fuck up. They're all going to make mistakes.
That's the beauty of going live.
It is.
When I did start my show in the beginning 20 years ago, I went live all the time with my shows. I was live all the time before I pre-recorded everything. I was live all day, every day.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
I loved it. I loved going live.
No, I love it because it's fluid, right? It's not just static, right? And then I told Tony, I said, listen, the best way to make this really authentic because I knew where AI was coming in. I knew what was going to happen as far as the projection of everything, how everything's become really fucking fake. And one of the things that really drives me nuts about Instagram and all the social media platforms is all these motherfuckers out there pretending to be there's something they're not. You know what I mean? Oh, here's me in front of a Lambo that I rented, or you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't want to pretend to be anybody except me. I just want to be me. I knew that the world would be yearning for real connection and real authenticity, right? As much as AI gets wherever it's going to go, and these scammers are doing whatever the hell they're doing, at the end of the day, people are always going to be drawn to something authentically real that's emotionally connected, right? So Tony, God bless him, man, he trusted me and saw my vision. And then I told him, I said, listen, I said the best way to make it authentic is if I don't know a fucking thing, right? That if I'm also a watcher, right? I'm also somebody that's shocked in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, I don't want to know anything. I was like, hey, you pick out the questions, you pick out, you know what I mean? I'll have some context of what kind of questions we're looking for. You know what I mean? Like I told him, I said, if you notice, last couple of weeks we've had more substance. So I said, I want more substance, less sexual, right? We can talk about sexual stuff, sprinkle it in there, but let's go for more substance, right? And Tony did that. So when you see my reaction to the questions or the stories, it's 100% me hearing it for the first time.
I know it's real. I know it's real.
It's all fucking real.
Those that don't, for those of you who are listening or watching this right now who have never ever seen an episode of Advice Unfiltered, I can tell you right now, for as long as I have watched this, I already know his reactions are 100% on point. Truth. He doesn't know jack shit.
Not a fucking thing, bro. It's not a fucking thing.
It is said on multiple occasions on the show, Tony literally will come out and say, I don't tell him anything. There's a lot of things that he doesn't know. He doesn't know this. And even Chris himself goes like, yeah, I don't know anything. I really don't know anything. And I'm saying, no, he literally doesn't know anything. So watching his reactions to a lot of these questions, especially, I love Tony, the way that he asks them so nonchalantly and not just, he doesn't start laughing at these questions. He's just calm, reading it right through. And then you catch it. It takes you a second.
Right?
It takes you a second because then you rewind the tape back and then you're like, wait, what did you just say?
Yep.
And then he repeats it, and then it just I literally, as I said on one of the posts, I said, you know, when Chris starts laughing the way that he laughs, we're fucking cooked. We're cooked. We are cooked. I knew on Tuesday's show when that happened, when he told you about that nomination, as soon as you fell out, I said, oh yeah, we're cooked. We're fucking done.
I was losing it, bro. I was losing it. Because my first thought process when it said relationship advice was all my ex-girlfriends watch that going, wait, what fucking guy? No, I love it. I think it's a great dynamic. It's amazing. Christian, you'll meet Christian when you come.
Yeah.
Christian's dad was actually the lead singer of PM Dawn. Great guy. Wow. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Great dude, man. And then we have Ming also come in once in a while. Ming is like a huge Comic-Con guy, dude. He's got his own Funko Pop and everything else. I don't know if he'll be there that day, but you'll be Christian. But yeah, no, it's a blessing, bro. And I think both of us, right? We and you both, right? We are examples of making that choice, no matter how crazy it sounds. Like, cause dude, you know how many people I sat there and I would tell them I'm going to do a podcast and it's going to be huge. It's going to be blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? I think that was like the hardest lesson for Tony to learn, right? Is because I've been doing this long enough, right? I've been doing this social media thing now for 5 years. And like I said, this past year is when it really exploded, right? I went from 3,000 followers to 874 or something like that now or something. And in a year. And what it was is I made that choice that this is going to happen. This is what I'm going to do. And like I was talking to my friend Jamie Presley, love her, great woman. I was talking to her, and she said to me once, she said, Chris, it took her years to get to the table, right, to be able to feel like she was comfortable sitting at the table. And she said, I don't think it's going to take you that long, Chris, to get your seat at the table. And I said to her, I said, I really do appreciate you, Jamie. And always I bring this up because I want to make a point about you and me doing this. Is that I said to her, I said, I really appreciate that. I said, I hope one day that people feel like I'm welcome at the table. But at the same point in time, I'm going to build my own fucking table. I'm going to build my own table that everybody else wants to sit at, right? And that's what you were doing, and that's what I'm doing, right? We're creating this environment that people want to come and sit and break bread. Right. Yeah. They want to be a part of that. They want to see, they want to laugh, they want to cry, they want to be emotional about it. They want to see the authenticity of what it is to be a human, not just a man, not just a woman, not just a black guy, not just a white guy, a human. Right? We are human beings, at the end of the day. And I think that's what you do really well. And I think that's what Tony and me do really well too, is we're really good at connecting to the human in all of us, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I wanted to call back to that comment that you had on the show too about the podcast part. You touched on it just a few moments ago, and when I heard you say it on Tuesday's show, I immediately said I went through the same thing. When people hear that you're starting a podcast, they're literally looking at you cross-eyed, going, "Why would you want to do that? And why would you want to start a podcast? There's too many. I mean, we're oversaturated with podcasts, or they really don't understand it."
No,
And I'm sitting here going like, well, we're oversaturated with everything else, with YouTube channels and everything and apps that you want to get on with TikTok and Instagram and all this other stuff. You're complaining about that there's an oversaturation of podcasts, but yet you want to get every app that you want to get your hands on because you want to be trendy.
So it's funny you say that, because one of the things I say to trainers, right? Because when we started working at Lifetime, there was, I think, 12 of us. There is now 42 trainers there, right? And some of the old trainers go, man, why do they keep hiring these new people? Blah, 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 blah. And I hear people, and they'll go, man, there's so much competition in that field. And just like you're saying about the podcast, there's a lot of competition in this podcast, right? But here's what people forget about, man, is that even though there's millions of trainers, there's millions of podcasts, there's millions of YouTubes, there is nobody, and I mean this, there is nobody like you, Buzz, and there's nobody like me. Like, we bring something different to the table, right? We bring something that somebody else, doesn't matter how many podcasts there are, they aren't us. They can't bring what we bring to the table, right? No different than any lawyer, no different than any trainer, no different than any actor. There's something about the individual person that when you make that choice to believe in yourself and you make that choice to stay consistent with that we bring to the table that nobody else can bring to the table. And that's what connection.
You make that connection. And I really feel, as well as with the podcast community, is very supportive. And I never, yes, we're competitive in our own right, but we're not really competitive because we, as you just said, we're different in our approaches. We're different in what we do. And I love the fact that you said we're making our own tables, because that's what we are doing. We are, when people looked at it cross-eyed in the beginning and not really understanding and not really supporting it, at least with me, that didn't stop me. If anything, that just gave me more juxtaposition to keep going and keep growing and making it the beast that it is right now. And I will say, and then this is kind of I know Tony didn't want me to really say much of this because I know he wants to save it for his show. I'm just going to give you a little tease of this comment. Those of you that are joining on this train now that weren't really supporting me in the beginning, I see you. Don't think I forgot. That's what I will say there.
I love that, bro. That was the thing. So for Tony, it was an eye opener for him, right? Because Tony is one of the reason we all connected, right? Is because we're all real. So I couldn't thank God more, or the universe enough more, to put Tony in my life, right? Tony, what's great about Tony is he stays in his lane, I stay in mine, right? But what's great about him is that he sat there and he had all these people, right, that he considered friends. Right?
Yeah.
That he would go out and he hang out with, and all these people that he considered close. And none of those fuckers watched the show. None of those people watched the show, right? Yeah. And that was a real hard wake-up call for him, right? And I dealt with that, my whole social media stuff, right? I
absolutely
can tell you on my hand how many people that I personally know, that I've hung out with, broke bread with, that actually like my post, share my post, or talk about what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And there's people that I've known my whole life that have never once ever shared my post, liked my post, said, "Yo, bro, dude, I'm really proud of what you're doing," right? And it bothered me years ago, but now I use it as fuel. I use it as it's not about recognition from people that I knew. It's about recognition from my peers and people that I care about the most, which are my kids. So if we can, So I have people tell me all the time, man, they're like, oh, you're looking for validation. You're looking for, they think I'm out there trying to get dates or whatever, man. I'm not doing this for any validation. I know who the fuck I am. The only people that I care about their opinions are my kids. I care about setting that example for them, man, because, and I tell you all the time, the whole reason I started the social media journey at all, I never thought in a million years that I would have a book that would be worldwide, that I would have sold shirts worldwide, that anybody would know what Team David is, right? Which is something I started for my kids. They're 16 years apart, so I wanted them to feel like they had a family. So I started putting Team David on my stuff. Then I put my lucky number on at 72 because there was another Team David, some Spanish guy who's like the Spanish version of me, who's like a doctor on some soap opera and soccer player.
Dude, oh, wow.
But
okay.
I was putting Team David on stuff, but it was going to his page. And I was like,
now it makes sense.
So that's where all 72 came from, right? It's just my lucky number. So yeah, I would have never thought in a million years that anybody would know or even give a fuck who I am, right?
Yeah.
My thought process is I was going to post these videos, right, for me. All those monumental moments where I'm talking to the camera and I'm giving these motivational advice, especially back in the day, was me talking to me, trying to get myself through my own mental. It was me training my mind to think better. But at the same point in time, I did it because I knew, God forbid, if something happened to me, at least my kids, if they needed my advice, if they were going through something, could look at that
It's
social
right
media.
there for them to look.
Right there's fucking dad, right? Right there's dad telling me that I can get through this, right? But because I made that choice, right? Because I made the choice to chase my dreams, and I'm gonna do this no matter fucking what, hill or high water, death or life. You know, I'm gonna make this happen. All this stuff is here. You're here. Me and you are having this conversation now. You know, and it's what you did too, man. I think that's what me and you and Tony are great examples of. And it's not about recognition from people we grew up with. You know, my mom's never watched the fucking show. My dad, my real father, has never watched the fucking show. You know, I sent them that news clip. My parents, I sent them that news clip of me being on the news talking about fitness and stuff. They didn't even watch it until I asked them 2 weeks later, yo, did you watch it? I'm like, oh, I didn't know what it was, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you know, if you take anything, I think the example of you, me, and Tony, and is at the end of the day, your self-worth comes from nowhere else but you. You create your own self-worth, man. Don't depend on somebody else to give it to you. Don't send somebody else to make you feel like you matter. You make that choice. You make that choice to make yourself matter. I think it's a great example that we all set. And it was funny because me and Tony, it was funny. We did our very first episode together, right? And at that time, me and Tony still not hung out together outside of the gym, right? So we do the first episode. Still have not hung outside the gym together, right? Never even spent.
Didn't even know what your chemistry would be like.
Yeah, no idea, bro. And we left that night. And Tony goes, "That was amazing." I was like, "Yeah, dude." I was like, "That was really good, bro. I think there's something here." And he looked at me and he goes, "Man, this is the brokest we're ever gonna be, Chris." And I was like, "Yeah, bro." I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." You know, and I love that Tony gets so excited about it. And you need to surround yourself with people like that, right? If you want to spend your time with anybody, and that's the thing too. I think not to go back into it, but I think it's the thing too. When you make that choice to make your worth, your value, something that you control, that you will automatically attract people to you that are on that same vibe, that are on that same path. You know what I mean? And then the next thing you know, you have your own community that cares. I
feel like that's you literally described how us three really came in together, because I think honestly that's what really happened. It's just the matter of positivity. And you even talked about the community. I mean, you have the ambassador program that you do with Advice Unfiltered, and how they literally have come together. And I've seen them, I've watched them. I haven't met any of them in person, but I do communicate with them now, even outside of the show, which is really, really cool. That most of those girls, Rebecca and Lisa and a few others from the program, who we just now even have the conversations and now we support each other in ways. And I just love the fact that your show manages to bring us together and become friends with people that we probably never would have expected to become friends with. You know, we were literally thinking we were just going to be watching the show and just that's it. We're just going to be watching the show. But that was one of the beauties of you going live, is that we get to converse with the other viewers that are watching this. And we get to have some fun with them aside from you guys when we watch you.
To me, that's crazy, bro. Like, it's nuts, because I never started this thing, and this is the guy's honest truth. I never started this thing to get famous. You know what I mean? That was never my objective. I could care less if anybody knows who the fuck I am, right? I literally did this, one, I think I said, to make my life better for me and my kids. And two, I really wanted to make a difference. Like, I really wanted to make a difference and show people that they're not alone. And then and then when I do pass, you know, that my kids will hear people going, "That guy right there helped me change my life.
He changed my life." Right?
To me, there's no price on that. Like, that to me is fucking everything, bro. To have my kids be that proud,
it's definitely priceless. And I'm definitely the same boat of doing this for my own self-worth. I'm not doing this for anybody else. I never started this for anybody else. I started it for me. I did this for me. I loved it and continue to do it because I love it. I'm not doing this for, as you also said, which I 100% agree with, I wasn't looking for validation in doing this show. You can understand it if you want. You don't have to understand it if you don't want to. But who has to understand it, and who has to love and appreciate it? Me.
Yep.
And that's all that matters to me. And because I worked my ass off to get it to where it is right now. I mean, when I started this in the beginning, it was nowhere close to where this was at this point. I was interviewing people, and that's not a knock on the people who are interviewing, by the way, because I love those guys. I will continue to root and have them on my show all the time. I am friends with those people in the soap opera community, and who are soap opera actors currently on daytime television. They are my people. They're my homies, and they will always have a home here. but it never really grew until I was able to focus more on it when I had the opportunity to do that. When I had that job that I talked about earlier, I did not have the opportunity to do that. Once I got out of that, and that's another thing, I feel like God really wanted me out of that job.
Yeah,
God wanted me out of that job so bad that he had to get them to lay me off because he knew I was struggling. He knew I wasn't happy. He knew that this boss wanted to get me out of there. I know, and in my heart of hearts, I know that was God basically telling me, we got to get you out of here. And the only way to do that, because you're not going to quit, I'm going to make them fire you.
I'm going to kick you in the ass and get you moving.
He pretty much kicked me in the ass and got me moving. Is right. Yeah. And as soon as it happened, I don't know what it was. Like the thing with the peer for you, as soon as I got out of there and the 2 weeks that I was off, pretty much because I was still getting paid before I started my new gig, as soon as I got out of there and I really did some reflection, I went to one of my favorite restaurants in Jersey, and I immediately was just like, what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck am I doing? And then as soon as I reassessed, I immediately put what was important to me up here and what was not down here. The podcast was really at the top of the list. If not number one, it was number two. And as soon as I did that, it immediately changed my whole life perspective.
You make that choice. You jump, right? You make that choice, dude. I think that's what a lot of people are afraid to do. Going back to the whole mental health thing, it's people look at people like you and me. They don't see how long or how hard or all the work that took to get here. Right? Yeah. They don't understand that, we had to scratch and crawl and fight, but the moment, as much work as it possibly was to get to the point where you and me are at and Tony's at in this entertainment field, it was such a benefit every time, right? Like we benefited from it every time. Like it was as much as it was hard work, it was also something that just it fit like a puzzle piece, right? Like it just felt like this is it. Everything else doesn't matter. This is it. This is what we're doing, right? Yeah. And even now with the podcast, like it evolves, right? Like so correct. I from day one I told Tony, I was like, I want to take this podcast on the road.
For me, and that also stems into when I said I never really looked and worked harder into this when what happened years ago. As soon as I started getting more and more opportunities my way, I then started looking at what else can I do with this? Like, what else can I do to put myself out there? And then you're seeing they have these podcast academy summits, like the one at On Air Fest. They're going to have another one in New York in September. And then they were supposed to have one in Austin, Texas. I was supposed to be at, but because of a previous engagement, I'm not able to attend it. But also there's a lot of things that's rooted underneath the surface that we don't really catch. And I'm now starting to see it, and it's just it's very interesting how much more you can get involved and how much you can do more with your show exactly the way that you want to do it. And it's just you just got to put yourself out there like you have been doing, and I can see it happening for you, especially at these events, because they're looking for that. They're looking for talent. They're looking for
so. I told Tony. I said to him, I was like, we're no longer really a podcast. We're a show. Yeah, we're a show about a podcast is what we are. That's what it comes down to, right? But I'm grateful for it all. Tony's an amazing. I couldn't ask for a better partner in this, man. Like he's so good at what he does. But it goes back to making that choice, right? Like I made that choice a year ago. And then I'm going to do this no matter high or high water, and the universe lines it up. God lines it up for you when you make that choice, just like it did for you.
It did for me, and I can't really say thank you enough for that, because if it wasn't for that kick in the pants from that issue, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't be. I'll even say this: I probably never would have interviewed Harrison fucking Ford
How cool is that?
If it wasn't for that moment in time. I really do believe that, because I never would have put myself
cheering you on, bro. I saw that clip and I was like, you fucking go, bro. Like that's amazing. How amazing is that, right? So jumping into that opportunity, that right there is prime example of you taking control of your path. If you would have took that initiative, that probably wouldn't have happened. And I think that's where a lot of people fail, right? They're afraid to put themselves out there, and they're afraid to they get a feel like you had a thought in your head, right? You had that little thing in your head that said, "Yo, Buzz, go talk to that publicist. If you talk to that publicist, you're gonna be able to talk to Harrison Ford." And I guarantee you had a little bit of anxiety, a little bit like, should I do this?
For sure.
Right? But you listened, right? You listened. And just to bring it all back around the circle, right, about mental health. We usually, and this is one of my points about my book, and one of the things I truly believe in, right, is we usually have two voices in our head. Some of us have more. we usually have two, right? And we have our spirit mind, your conscience, or that voice, or we have that ego mind, right? And 99% of us listen to that ego mind, right? That ego mind keeps us in our comfort zone, right? When we are our spirit mind, like say for instance, like you said, like you had that that voice in your head say, Buzz, go talk to that publicist.
Yep.
If you wouldn't have listened to that spirit inside of you, the things wouldn't have happened. If I wouldn't have listened to that spirit inside of me and said, hey, go do this, or even with our podcast, who gives a fuck about you or me? And before we became anybody, right? Nobody knew who the fuck we were. But because we listen to that inner voice, we listen to that spirit that's inside of all of us, that voice, and we didn't listen to that ego mind that likes to keep us conformed, amazing things happens in our lives. Go back to that story about me meeting that girl in that pier. I had an inner voice that told me to go listen to it. And I think that's the basis of my book, right? My basis of my book is, if you listen, I didn't have a game plan. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a direction. I didn't have a map. I listened to that inner voice, that spirit inside of all of us. And I think to bring everything full circle, I think that should be the message about that mental health, is that sometimes, most of the time, I would say 98% of the time, in that uncomfortable state, that idea that this is crazy, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is the idea that we should be following the most, is the feeling that we should be understanding the most. I think if we let go of the ego mind, the quick fix, the instant gratification, and we start listening more to that inner spirit that sounds a little crazy. It sounds a little nuts. Like, why would I drive 2.5 hours to go to some pier in New Jersey? Well, I did that, and I met an amazing woman that needed to talk to me. Why would you be hit that red carpet at the exact moment you did, and then have that inner thought saying, I should talk to this publicist, right? What are the odds that me, out of 462 people, would meet Anthony, and Anthony go, hey, man, you want to try to get on set?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think it goes back to that if you get anything from anything that we and you talk about, I think trusting that inner spirit, no matter how crazy it sounds, trusting it, that amazing things do happen in your life when you believe in you, and you don't succumb to the norm, the ego of comfortability.
I want to point out another word that you even said too, because that also ties into what you and I and Tony do now with our podcast, but even outside of that, just with life itself, you got to listen to people. And I think, and that's a big thing for us as hosts of our own shows, that we got to listen to those that we are talking to and with, because as you pointed out, we're not our authentic selves if we're not paying attention, if we're not listening. We can even use this as far as going back to the mental illness topic of it. We talk about how there's so much stigma around it. No one wants to listen to us when we talk about we are suffering from mental illness, and I'm using the royal we in that one, but generally speaking, no one really listens to when somebody says they're going through it majority of the time. I feel like. And when that happens, something happens. And then you're living with that regret because you didn't listen to them. And then because they reached out and you didn't want to hear it. And that's one of the things I always want to tell people. If there is something that is going on with somebody that you know and you care about, and they are going through something, they are telling you, I need you to listen to them. I need you to hear them. I don't want you to dismiss them, because if you do, that's going to make them feel that, as we even pointed out before, nobody really cares about me. Or if that was the one person who I thought would have cared about me the most really doesn't give a shit, then what's that say to them in their mind? The other part of it too is not just even listening to them, it's also them listening to themselves. And I think that's also a big thing. When you touched on that, is just listening to yourselves and listening to that voice. And I know sometimes it's not always the good one that'll win out in most of those cases. But I feel like, I don't know what it was, and it wasn't probably even something that it was even in your head, but when you talked about that story where you were going to beat up the dad, but that friend of yours called you right out of the blue and just stopped you from doing that because she called you. And it just immediately just went the opposite direction. And you just basically said, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to do that to my kids. I'm not going to do something.
I was going to say that as you were talking, I was thinking about that. When you have an idea, when somebody pops up into your head and you think you should call them. That's we are seriously all connected, right? Perfect example of this, right? It's funny you say all this because it actually ties it out. So I was training my client Alfonso yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer that even though we are individualities, we're individual people, that we are also susceptible to being in a hive mind, right?
Yeah.
So if we're all watching the same program, we're all going to have this view, right? If we're all watching destruction stuff, we're all going to feel like the world's going to end, right? And so yesterday at the gym, I noticed everybody's wearing this purple maroon. It's an odd color. It's odd color, right? Not everybody wears purple maroon. It's an odd color, right? And yesterday there was 12 people at the gym wearing full outfits of purple maroon. And my first thought process was, what were they watching? What were they doing that at that moment they all decided today to wear that color? Now today I was at the gym, not one person was wearing that color. Not one person was wearing that color at all, right? And it's not the only time I've noticed this, right? And I think that a lot of people that and maybe want to ask them, and maybe want to ask them, what they were doing, right? If you can, what they were watching, what they were participating in that made them feel like they had to wear that color, right? So if anything, I think people need to be aware of what they're watching, what they're putting in. We are what we eat, right? So we are what we listen to and what we talk about and what we focus on, right? And I think it's one of the reasons, like the other day, I was talking about. Somebody asked me. They said, I said I was stressed out and I had a lot of stuff going on. And they said, well, we'd love to hear about it. If you want to talk about it, I'm here. And I said, well, here's the thing. I said, I don't like to talk about things that stress me out because that breathes life into that, right? I'd really rather focus on the solutions that make things better, right? And all my videos and everything that I've done, even now, I am 10 years clean and sober, right? 10 years into my mental health awareness, right? Yeah. I still fight depression. I still fight anxiety. I still fight those things. Those are things that will never typically ever go away.
It's not going to go away.
It's not going to go away. But I've created tools to combat those things, right? Like even those videos I do in the morning, like this morning, right? I did that video where I said I was trying to think of something I would say that'd be different that would help motivate people.
Yeah, I did.
When I make that comment, I believe in me. That's me talking to me. And I think that's why it comes off so real, right? Because I'm really being generally honest about it. But so for people to combat their mental health, and this I think is what my point was, is to combat their mental health, they have to literally create habits that identify those situations. Like I can tell you when I'm about to be depressed, right? I can tell you what triggers me to be in that mode, right? Where that imposter syndrome or that I'm not good enough syndrome, And I see those things, and the moment those things start coming at me, I let myself feel them. I don't say don't feel it. I let myself feel it, but then I start doing the things that make my life better, right? That to combat those things, right? And I think that's when people make a mistake when it comes to mental health, is they think it's a quick fix, right? They think that if I go to listen to Tony Robinson's and I go to this one meeting but it's not. It's work, and it's
work.
It's work, and no different than training your body, training your mind to have those combative. I call it mind kung fu. Training your mind to fight those negative thoughts, right? To understand that life doesn't have to be perfect, right? That you are supposed to be perfectly flawed. And that life is a classroom. It literally is. I think the biggest mistake we all make, man, is that we think because we graduate college or we got this perfect job that all of a sudden we fucking know it all. We know it all, and this is what it is. And that's not at all the case, man.
That's not true.
That's when life throws you a fucking curveball. And you're like, oh, wait, I didn't know that.
That's literally accurate. And I mean, I'm sitting here. We talked about evolving, even with our shows. I'm evolving as a person, so it's not. It's the same thing. We're all learning. We're all growing each day. If we weren't, we're not living our life right. Is how I feel about that. If we're not learning new things, we're not living our life right. So I completely 100% agree with that. It's especially with the work your mind part, because for me, it's always. I said this on my Instagram when I talked about it. I said the one thing that is a constant when I know I go to that dark place. Music. It's always music for me. There's always music for me. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's hard, and you're thinking like, why would you listen to hard rock or like this and like, because it gets me
What's your go-to?
It gets me hype. My go-to song or my go-to
like whatever. Forget like what do you go to?
Oh, that's a good one. I've been on a Papa Roach kick lately.
I love that.
I've been on a Papa Roach kick lately. And there was one day I literally sat, I never did it before. And it was one day I had that moment and I just listened to the whole Nevermind album from Nirvana for the very first time. I never listened to the whole thing. And I actually listened to the whole thing. And I said, damn, that was pretty fucking badass. Obviously, Smells Like Teen Spirit is a thing. And I've always listened to Lithium and Come As You Are was the other one. Yeah, Come As You Are. Those were the three main ones. But then when I really listened to the whole album, and I just was like, wow, this was a masterpiece in itself.
No, it's a great album. No, it's a great album. Isn't it funny how like Nirvana or like Linkin Park or, you know, all those great artists, right? So I think it's where again, it comes down to authenticity, right? And listening, right? Those artists, those famous people like that, right? That aren't with us anymore. God bless their souls. Oh. They were all cries for help. You know, you listen to that Linkin Park album, dude. Yeah, you listen to that Linkin Park album, and now we know. And you listen to it now.
I said the same thing about that album when he committed suicide. He literally said there was a song. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Breaking the Habit. I think it was Breaking the Habit. But I know I said call the song out, and immediately I went, when you listen to the lyrics now I get it.
That's a whole different meaning. That's a whole different meaning, man. That's a whole different meaning, dude. And then so that I think that's. I think when it comes down to mental health, like I said, it's creating those habits, doing the work. Is it easy? No. Is it fucking worth it? Percent, bro. Percent, dude. And you know, and it goes back to like, you know, I would have never thought in a million years, Buzz, in a million years, bro, that anybody would know who the fuck I am, let alone famous people would know who the hell I am, right? And I think that would know what the hell I'm doing, right? I mean, the coolest one that reached out to me right now is the Tootie from Facts of Life, freaking Kimberly. She reached out to me and loved my stuff. Yeah, dude. Freaking, she reached out to me and said she loved my stuff, man, which I'm very honored. Like, I would have never thought in a million years they would know who this fucking white guy is from freaking Ole, Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? And but making that choice, man, creating those habits, it's a vibration, it's a vibe, it's a thing that transcends who you are as a person. And I think me and you and Tony are all great examples of overcoming strife and stuff that when we make the choice to live and take and do the hard work, it pays off. It pays off at the end of the day, man. It really does, man.
I really appreciate the fact that you took what happened in your life and you turned it into a positive, to a point where you're giving back to everybody who follows you, not just on the socials but also on the show. So the fact that you do that on a consistent basis almost every day, everybody watches your videos. You say the good mornings, but there's always a message after the good mornings too. It's, for me, it's one of the things that I always look forward to, because I'm just sitting there going like, this guy's been through it, he's lived it, he's continued to live it, and he's pushing out the positivity to everybody else. And we need that. And I really appreciate that you are doing that and you continue to do that. That's not,
thank you.
You know, it's something that people would not look at. If other people were kind of doing the same thing that you were doing, they probably wouldn't keep up with it the way that you are. They probably would stop right after maybe like the 5th video or something.
Yeah.
You're doing it. You continue to. I feel like those people are only doing it for clout. And as you pointed out, you're not doing it for validation. I feel like others would do that for validation. You're doing it because you love people. You love people, and I really appreciate
100%. That's 100%, dude. I would have never thought in a million years, man, that me saying good morning who would have thought? Like, let's think about it, Buzz. Like, who would have thought in a million years, right? That just a simple gesture, a good morning, and I hope you have an amazing day. And just telling people you believe in them.
There's probably people out there that don't get that.
That just shows you, right, that it's that easy, right? That it would transcend not just, you know, here, but around the world, bro. Like, who would have thought people in Japan, you know, people in Iran, people in Israel. Yeah, dude. Like, who would have thought in a million years, man, that me saying good morning and I believe in people would transcend not just nationalities or colors or but transcend into people's hearts. Like, who would have thought that, dude? I would have never thought in a million years that me doing that would be such an impact. That week I was sick. You know how many people messaged me going, "Yo, man, where's my good morning? Where's my where's my good morning video?" Like, I look forward to that every day. Like, you know, that I've become a constant in people's lives. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, right? Like, I think about that. I'm like, it's nuts to think that something so simple, but it shows you, right, that you don't have to be larger than life. You just have to be real. And you just have to be authentically you, right? And again, I can't say this enough, man. I know I say it all the time, but the moment you make that choice, right, to sit in silence and get to know you and get to understand who you are and understand that you being on this planet is 1 in a trillion, bro, that me and you are having this experience right now is a gift. It's a straight up gift. You know, it's not a punishment. You know, it's not, you're not here to be punished. You were here as a gift. It's a gift to be alive, man. And you know, I think about all this stuff. Like me being homeless, living out of my car, eating saltines off the floor that were stale because I had no money, and having no family. Like I had nobody. I had nobody. The only person I knew where I was in that whole trip was my oldest son, and I had nobody, dude. I was alone. And you think about that stuff as you're going through, and you think this fucking sucks. Like this sucks. It was terrible, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I mean, most people really think it was like a vacation or something, but it wasn't. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, and losing my family that I thought I had with my ex-wife, having to fight for my son twice, freaking all that stuff that I went through. People thinking that I was a drug addict, that I was a loser, that I never amount to nothing. If you ask my grandmother before she passed, I wasn't going to be shit. I was going to be another fucking loser like my uncle Timmy was, right? That I wouldn't amount to anything. Nobody ever thought that I would ever change and become the person I am today. But I would never change anything I went through, bro. It's crazy to say.
No, that's not crazy at all. Because I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly because I was bullied growing up and, in school, and I was very fortunate I had people that stuck up for me, but it was also a learning experience for me. Looking back on it, I would never change what happened at that time.
No, I wouldn't change a thing, man.
I wouldn't change a thing because if anything, it made me the person who I am right now. And that is one of the reasons why I look back at that. And yes, that was a very difficult time in my life. And I had to learn how to grow up from that. I had to learn how to do a lot of things, even with the jobs that I've had. I had to learn how to grow. I would not change any of that because it molded me into being who I am right now. And it made me more confident. It made me more, I was able to see people in the way that they needed to be seen. Let me say it that way, because
I love that. I actually love that you said that.
Because at one point I took people at face value.
Mm-hmm.
And now I really look at them and I go, okay, this is what I missed before. And then I could really see like, no, you're actually a piece of shit, or you're actually really genuine now. And it's one of the things one of my good friends always tells me now is that I have really good intuition about people. And I never really thought anything about it until I started doing things that people started catching, go like, you really don't like that person, do you? And then I'm like, but then it's like, but what is it about them that you don't like? And then I tell them, and then they're like, that's why I don't like them. I said, I didn't realize I do that. And then it now sticks with me. And it's.
No, I think that's one of the things that it keeps me humble, right? I think most people think with everything that's happened last year, that my ego would be huge, right? That I would have this big head, but I don't. The only thing that when I look at people, I see you. Like when I see you, Buzz, I see you, but I see me in you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are me. I am you. We are, the same person. We just have different. Yeah, we just have different. We had different teachers in our life. That's all. We all learned, and I'm a firm believer in this. We all learned the same life lessons. All of us at different times. And by different teachers, you know what I mean? And I'm a firm believer in that. Like that's why I said in my book, it was never just about me, the journey to save my life, because my story is your story. It is. It still relates to that. And I think this is where a lot of people mess up in life right now, right? Is that they want to be heard, right? They want to have an opinion. They want their opinion to be heard, right? But they don't want to listen to anybody else's opinion or anybody else's viewpoint, right? And I'm really good at that. Like I talk about on the show. Like I have this friend of mine, Evan. We have differences in politics and political views, right? But we're able to talk about it. Like we're able to talk about it, and not feel like I have to shut him out. Like I have to hate him because he has a different view than I do, right? And I think that's where we go all the way back full circle to where we were talking about our friends, where my boy Bobby can go look at me and call me Kevin. You know what I mean? Like it goes back to that it doesn't have to be so personal. It doesn't have to be so offended by somebody not agreeing with you. I think that's great. I think this is one of the part of the things that we're missing in America. That was one of the things that I was raised on, is that your difference is what makes America great. The fact that we don't think the same, the fact that we do eat different foods, the fact is that what is America supposed to be? It's supposed to be a melting pot of ideas and thoughts and ethnicity and all those things. We're supposed to learn from each other, grow from it, and find that common ground. And I think right now, people are so quick to label, fucking throw labels around like they're fucking psychiatrists, and they're so quick to put you in a box, and put you in a category where you're not. we're 98% water, right? We're 98% water.
Yes.
So the fact that we're 98% water means we flow. We're forever fluid. We are forever growing and changing and evolving. The only
Absolutely.
time that it matters that water dies is when it becomes stagnant. When we become stagnant water, we put ourselves in that box. We put ourselves in that conform thing where I know it all. And this is what I'm doing, right? And this is the way life is, you know. And it's not. It's not. It's forever fluid. It's forever growing and evolving. And I think your experience, my experience, and even Tony's experience is that we're all good examples of that, right? That we've been through the shit, and we understand more shit's going to happen. You know, life's not going to be perfect, but we look forward to that, right? We look forward to that because that gives us an opportunity to grow and learn more, right? So it's changing that perspective, right? Like, yeah, things happen, things are shit, trauma happens, you know, and there's bad people out there, 100%. But how we respond to it is always 100% our responsibility, you know, at the end of the day. You know?
Part 2 of our interview with Christopher David airs in the next few weeks, which will be the extended cut. So you will see and hear things that were not in this episode, so stay tuned for that. I want to thank Podcasthon for allowing me to participate this year, as well as raising awareness for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. For more information, please visit their website at NAMI.org. That's NAMI.org. And if you want to learn more about Podcasthon and some of the other podcasts that are out there raising awareness for their favorite charitable causes, you can visit their website at podcasthon.org. You can catch Chris along with his co-host Tony Rodriguez hosting Advice Unfiltered every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m., streaming live on YouTube, and the episode is available next day on all podcast platforms. I'm Novell J. Lee, making sure you keep getting the latest buzz with BuzzWorthy Radio by logging on to our website at buzzworthyradiocast.com. Until next time.